everybody. Welcome to the February 12th meeting of the Rotary Club of Beaver Creek. I'm your Zoom host and president, Mike Canada. I'm glad to see all of you here today. We've got 31 participants here. We might have a couple more log in. I'd like to thank our greeters. I think I saw Brandon greet a couple people. Obviously, Eric, you greeted a couple people. Mark. I'd like to thank Mike Zwick for our great speakers and programs, Jim Gundel and Alex Zaharia for our website and YouTube, and Beth Cusack for our book dedication. I would like to welcome all of our members who joined us today, any guests that may be joining, and if you are a guest, I'll pause here if you could just please introduce yourself.
Andrew Hunt, I'm a guest.
Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you.
Betty Bouzeos, wife of your speaker.
Welcome, Betty. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
And Amanda Hayes, this is my second one to attend to.
Amanda, thanks for coming back. Welcome. Any other guests? All right, and as always, a special welcome to our speaker, Dean Bouzeos from Athletes in Action, who will be talking to us about the mission of Athletes in Action. So far, our club's been averaging 37 on Zoom and 13 on YouTube. And with that, it's time for the Sergeant at Arms report, who was busted last week after his a stripe after last week's report. We'll see if he can get promoted again this week. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Corporal at Arms, Dave Fleming.
Oh, gee. Okay. Well, format's about the same. It's 73 degrees and pretty clear blue sky in Sarasota, Florida today. Oh no, you want to know about local stuff. Okay, well, let's go national. The administration has finalized a deal for 200 million doses of the COVID-19 vaccine. President Biden suggests that all Americans that wish to could receive it by the end of this July. The House prosecutors complete or have completed an emotional presentation at the Trump impeachment trial. Several senators were unfortunately absent from their seats during the presentation, so they missed it. Trump organization reportedly is struggling under heavy debt and reduced revenues, but the relief program, which remains stalled in Congress at the point, perhaps will award Trump $1,400 if the program is completed, and that should help. I don't have any personal experience, but I read and see in the media that there have been deadly vehicle pileups on multiple icy highways in the United States this last several days. Sports, of course, Tom Brady led the Tampa Bucks to a 31-9 rout of Kansas City in the Super Bowl, giving him 7 career championships. While during the fourth quarter, a half-dressed, half-naked fan raced down the field until he was tackled by some security personnel. Somebody did that at a college homecoming at my college, and he got away, ran straight across the field and climbed up through some bleachers and got away with it. Urban Meyer, speaking of not nice things, Urban Meyer, now the head coach of Jacksonville Jaguars, is facing criticism for hiring an assistant coach who has a history of bullying and using racist language. Australian Open, Djokovic and Nadal are still in, as well as Serena and Naomi Osaka moving forward, but Venus Williams drops out, I guess, after a second round injury. Some other things, there's a man in Western Michigan who has successfully sued his parents for destroying his pornography collection. David Working told a federal judge he moved back home with his folks for 10 months after getting a divorce, and they admitted throwing out 12 large moving boxes filled with pornographic movies and magazines he claims were worth $29,000. The judge sided with Working, awarded him unknown sum, said he's entitled to compensation. His father didn't see it that way. His father said, frankly, son, I did you a big favor. Motorists, oh yeah, this is Ohio news. I-670 in Columbus, 6-lane highway, 8-lane highway, I guess it is. Motorists were startled to see a naked man wearing only a panda mask rollerblading down the road. High speeds. Streaker carried a golf club in one hand. He managed to elude police, and his identity remains unknown. We trust this is not anybody that has any association with the Beaver Creek Rotary Club. And finally, a Kentucky man used a flamethrower to clear the snow from his driveway. Timothy Browning is dressed in a white bathrobe, black socks, and sandals as he calmly sprays long lashes of fire from the weapon, instantly melting, yeah, I guess, melting the snow and the concrete as well. With his offhand, he puffs on a cigar, takes long swigs from a can of beer. He concludes the work by triumphantly throwing the beer can into the snow and shouting, "God bless American rednecks." Yeah, God bless American rednecks. Well, in honor or recognition of Valentine's Day, which is upcoming on Sunday, a little thing about kissing. PDA, public displays of affection, are illegal in Dubai and frowned upon in China. Even the French outlawed smooching on train platforms to prevent amorous passengers from delaying train departures. King Henry VI of England banned all kissing in 1439 in order to stop the spread of the bubonic plague. While mononucleosis, the kissing disease, is only one of several conditions you can catch from a kiss. In most cases, swapping spit boosts your immunity. When you smooch with someone new, you exchange tens of millions of microbes. Long-term partners share a common microbe mix from all their years of lip smacking. These exchanges help protect us against infections and maybe even allergies, so you can explain that to your wife or your spouse. Oh, I don't know. Sealing something with a kiss. I didn't know this. Sealing something with a kiss became popular during medieval practice. People were illiterate, and so all they could do on a contract was just put an X because they didn't know how to sign their names, and that's why the X's in XOXOXO stand for kisses. I'll bet you folks didn't know that. Let's see what else we have here about kissing. Kissing is neither universal nor unique to humans. In 2015, anthropologists at the University of Nevada in Las Vegas concluded that fewer than half of the 168 cultures they studied engaged in romantic kissing. So that means the other half of all those cultures in the world do not kiss. Meanwhile, apes such as chimpanzees and bonobos have been observed locking lips. Bonobos, whatever they are, even use their tongues. Single kiss involves as many as 30 facial muscles. While it's not exactly cardio exercise, kissing can burn calories, 2 to 6 per minute, with more passionate sessions burning up to a total of 26. On average, we spend 2 weeks of our lives smooching. So it could take your entire kissing experience to work off that box of Valentine's Day chocolates. And finally, something other than a kiss. Man went to see his rabbi. Rabbi, something terrible is happening and I have to talk to you about it. The rabbi asked, "What's wrong?" The man replied, "My wife is going to poison me." The rabbi is very surprised. The man said, "I'm telling you, I'm certain he's going to poison me. What should I do?" The rabbi offers, to the man. He says, I'll talk to her. Let me talk to her. I'll see what I can find out and I'll let you know. A week later, the rabbi called the man on the phone and said, I spoke to your wife on the phone for 3.5 hours. You want my advice? The man said, yes. The rabbi said, take the poison, take the poison. So let's see, Jim Rudd, I can't read my own printing. Jim Rudd is celebrating on the 13th his birthday of 21 years. Or maybe it was on the 13th, he's celebrating 21 years in Rotary and his birthday of X number of years. Jim and Sharon Gundel celebrating on the 12th their 21st anniversary. Or maybe it was on the 21st, they're celebrating their 12th anniversary. I'm not real sure, Jim, but I hope
55th year, 55 years of wedded bliss.
55, it says 21st anniversary. On your, would you please?
Oh, I like that number better.
You like, oh no, I'm not gonna tell Sharon that you wish it was only 21 years. Bad
No,
move.
it just makes us a lot younger.
Oh, well, there is that way of looking at it. We'll let Sharon decide whether she wants to look at it that way. After she calculates how many minutes of kissing you guys engage in and how many calories you're going to lose. Okay, so there are some fines. It's a fine, $1 fine if you have a porno collection, even if your parents never found it. It's a $1 fine if you have ever worn a panda mask, whether or not you've run across a football field wearing it. And it's a $1 fine if you ever used a flamethrower to clear the snow off your driveway, or if you ever used a flamethrower at all. And I guess that's it from sunny Sarasota, Florida. So I'll turn the microphone back over to the president for the collection of happy bucks.
Thank you, Dave. And I didn't know a lot of those kissing stats. And I also didn't know that you had a PhD in kissing. So that's got to be worth something. So I think we're going to promote you back to sergeant, because it was agreed upon that was pretty par for the course for your report. So thank you for that. Are there any happy bucks?
I do have one for the great people of Greene County Health Department and our Beaver Creek Auxiliary of helping with the shots for the last couple days out at the Rust Business Center. Great job with them.
Thank you, Randy.
I of course have a happy buck celebrating our 55th wedding anniversary, so I'll throw in 5 but not 21.
Congratulations, Jim.
I've got a happy buck. This is Brian Jarvis. I was out at the Rust Center Wednesday getting my first COVID shot. So I'll give $1 for that.
Thanks, Brian. Any other happy bucks?
I've got a couple. First one, I was able to meet with Mr. Mike Canada himself in the flesh this week, and we crossed paths for lunch, and it was just good to see Mike and catch up. 2, my wife and I are closing tonight on a refinance, switching from a 30-year to a 15 years. We're super excited about that, and the interest rate, can't argue, 2.5%. And lastly, through my business this week, I was able to write 2 $1,000 checks. We wrote one to the annual share fund, so half of that will ultimately come back to the district in a few years, and then we wrote $1,000 to the our own Beaver Creek Foundation, so Eric will stop squawking about foundation transfers of money at board meetings. So I was very happy to be able to do that through my business.
Congrats, Brandon. Any other happy bucks? All right.
Here, I'll give a late happy buck here. I'm really happy that my snowblower actually fired up after the first snowstorm. It hadn't been used in a long time. It was a bit rough, but it got the driveway clear in about 20 minutes. So I'm happy about that.
Nice. Any others? All right, we will move on to announcements. I have two. We'll be having a board meeting next week. All, of course, are welcome to attend, and I'll send an email out on Tuesday asking for board agenda items. The second one I have is if you are a guest and I don't currently have your email, if you'll just put it in the chat so I can be sure and follow up with you on membership, and also add you to the weekly Zoom call email. So are there any other announcements for the club?
I'd like to make one for y'all. Just like when we just had the 21-year anniversary, it's super easy to go into DACDB and just update your birthday, your anniversary, your contact information, which is just really helpful for the Sergeant at Arms when he's doing his report. I've had people reach out to me because they've got my email address and phone number through DACDB. So it takes only a minute or two to make sure that information is accurate, and it's for the betterment of the club.
Great PSA, Brandon. Appreciate that.
And Jim has a direct link right off the front page of our website that'll take you right to the login page for DAC.
If anybody has any questions on DAC, contact Eric. He can get you your login information if you need it. Any other announcements? All right, at this time, I'd like to turn the mic over to Mr. Mark Weinstein, who will be introducing our speaker and our program for today. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. And before I introduce Dean, I need to draw Dean's attention to Dave Cusack's backdrop. So he's sporting the AIA Fields in his virtual backdrop. So
thank you, David.
Dave Cusack, even though he's a lawyer, he knows what to do. He's really sharp. Thank you. So with that brief introduction on Dean. Dean Bouzeos is the Chief of Staff for the sports team division at Athletes in Action. In his role, he oversees 90 staff members and their ministry efforts in staying focused on pursuing AIA's vision and mission. He mentors young people, plays point on multiple new projects, and is involved in the preparations for the new wooden family field house, which I think maybe he'll talk about later this morning or this afternoon. He has served AIA for 6.5 years. Dean is a pastor at heart, having served pastoral roles at the Community Church of Greenwood, Indiana, and at Santa Cruz Bible Church in California. Was also the executive director of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes' golf ministry, which is a great ministry in Florida. He was a co-chaplain of the chapel at Sawgrass and the state director of the Wisconsin FCA. I have personally known Dean for the 6.5 years that he and his wife, Betty, who's joining us today. Since they've lived in the Miami Valley, I consider them really good friends, and I'm glad that Dean's here today. One final note, as my backdrop depicts, Dean is a younger version of his dad, Phil, who passed away 4 years ago at the age of 96. Phil passed his love of sports to Dean, and Phil was the equipment manager for the NFL champion Chicago Cardinals. If you missed the early pre-meeting today, Dean was talking about the Chicago Cardinals and his dad being the equipment manager, and that he organized the 50th anniversary of that victory and received a NFL championship ring, much like what's behind me. So with that said, I'll turn the program over to Dean, and thank you for sharing today.
Thanks, Mark. Here's that actual ring. I've got it sitting here next to the picture of my dad, and a great influence on my life, certainly. And he passed away, but lived a great life and left a great legacy with his family. So I appreciate Mike letting me share the screen here a little bit, and I'm going to just go in and out a little bit, but that's our logo, Athletes in Action. And on behalf of Athletes in Action, just want to thank everybody for the opportunity to be here today. On this day, actually Abraham Lincoln's birthday, arguably our nation's greatest president, I want to take you back to his second inaugural address on March 4th, 1865, just a month before the end of the Civil War. One of the highlights of this inaugural address that day was Lincoln saying that we as a nation needed to bind up the wounds of the Civil War and to take care of the orphans and widows of the war. He was quoting from the New Testament, the book of James, chapter 1, verse 27. Fortunately for the nation, the war ended a month later, but unfortunately for our country, President Lincoln was assassinated, leaving a glaring void. But the Ohio Regiment of the Army of the Potomac took Lincoln's words from the inaugural literally, came back home and found land here in Xenia that eventually became the soldiers and sailors' home. And over a 130-year period, 13,000 orphans lived on this campus with classrooms, dorms, dining facilities, athletic fields, crops, herds, and an armory. And many, many lives were impacted because of President Lincoln's vision and passion. The oldest building remaining on the property of the Soldiers and Sailors Home is Collier Chapel. And this year, it was highlighted on Smucker's commemorative plate that's had worldwide distribution. Pretty cool. And today, the property continues the legacy of caring and ministering to young people through Legacy Christian Academy and Athletes in Action. As Mark mentioned, I appreciate that. I'm Dean Bouzeos. I serve as Chief of Staff for the Sports Team Division of Athletes in Action. My wife, Betty, is on today, so thank you. And we'll probably practice a little bit of that kissing just to make sure we can burn off those calories like we were told a little bit earlier. We've been married 35 plus years. You might find that hard to believe, but we were married right out of grade school. And that allowed us to be able to continue and build those years together. But joy in my life and my biggest encourager and helpmate. So Betty, thanks for being on today. I want to thank Mark for the invitation to be here today and for his introduction. Thanks, Mark. He did fail to mention that in high school, I was the winner of 16 letters. I hasten to say that my dad was the finest coach and athletic director in the history of our high school. I value my friendship with Mark and appreciate his great work at Cedarville University, coordinating important communications, perspectives from a Christian and biblical worldview, and his involvement in our home church, Patterson Park Church, right here in Beaver Creek. And actually, you know, I have no problem with Mark being a big Wolverines fan, since I'm not a native Ohioan, but I do pull for the Ohio teams now that I live here, and we've done that as we've moved around the country. But what I'm most concerned about with Mark is our rivalry, the rivalry between his Detroit Tigers and my Chicago White Sox. I would like to remind Mark today, because I know he probably gets his jabs in at you guys, but I'd like to remind Mark that after losing their first game to the Tigers last year in the pandemic-shortened season, the White Sox went on to win 9 in a row against the Tigers, including this 9-0 beatdown on August 20th. But Mark don't want to rub that in at all. So I'll be coming back to the screen share in a little bit.
Let me remind you, this is about AIA, remember, AIA.
I do want to say I really appreciate Rotary International, your 1.2 million members, 35,000 plus clubs, 16 million volunteer hours of which you are a part of. So thank you for serving our community and for your heart for that. I really appreciate the noble international pursuits of championing peace, fighting illiteracy and poverty, promoting clean water and sanitation, and combating disease. Your 4-way test, which I've been familiar with, certainly has stood the test of time, and your mottos of service above self and one profits most who serves best remind me of Jesus' words himself. He said, "The servant is the greatest of all, and the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life a ransom for many." thank you for what you do here locally, providing Christmas food and gifts and high school pancake breakfast and fundraisers supporting the band at Beaver Creek High School. Mark shared that with me, and I really do commend you for those efforts. Thank you, and they are helping to make an impact on lives. Working with Athletes in Action is part of a journey of 35 years serving in sports and church ministry, following 8 years of coaching and teaching in the Chicagoland area. Sports, as kind of mentioned, have been a big part of my life. I played most every major sport growing up as a kid, a big sports fan. And growing up in the suburbs of Chicago, I was a big fan of the Chicago Bulls, long before Michael Jordan even made it to town. After my senior year in high school, I was working with the Chicago Bulls at their basketball camp in the summer as a counselor. I was heading off to Carroll College, now Carroll University in Wisconsin, to play Division III basketball and study to become a coach and teacher. I was working at the camp in order to try to develop my skills both as a player and as a coach. And one night at the camp, I had an opportunity to talk to one of the staff coaches, and I thought he was going to talk about my shooting a little bit or my coaching. But he actually began to talk about his personal faith in Jesus Christ. And I was thinking, I was brought up in a church and I knew about the Lord, but I look back on it then and back on it now, and I didn't really know the Lord in a personal way like this coach was talking about. And he played a cassette for me. Now, for those of you who don't know, that's a little plastic thing that had tape in it. You could listen to music and messages on it. So I listened to a cassette tape. It was by a football player, pro football player, Bill Glass, who talked about his life in sports and football, but also his personal faith in Christ. And I had never heard anybody combine those two before. It was just fascinating. And the next day I talked with the coach again, and he was telling me about a book he was reading. It was called The Late Great Planet Earth by a writer by the name of Hal Lindsey, who was writing about the end times. And I mean, I was just hearing things I had never heard before. And I thought it was fascinating. And he gave me another cassette tape. He said, hey, listen to it when you can. And later that afternoon, there was a break in the action, and I went back to my dorm room and listened to it. It was a message by Billy Graham. And I had heard of the Reverend Dr. Billy Graham, but I had never heard him preach. But I listened to the message. It was from Mark chapter 10, the story of the rich young ruler. And the Lord really spoke to my heart. At the end of the message, there was an invitation for the listener to put their faith in Christ. And on June 27th, 1973, I prayed to receive Christ, was born again, began walking with the Lord in that journey of following him. And that's led me to a life of sports ministry and now with Athletes in Action. My 18th birthday happened to be the very next day, and I heard a quote a number of years later by the late Howard Hendricks, Bible teacher, author. He said, the two most important days of our life are the day we were born and the day we were born again to know why we were born. And that's always stuck with me. I'm going to share the screen again here and pick up a little bit more. Sorry, Mark, don't want to rub that in there, but I've had the privilege of working with Athletes in Action, and we are the sports ministry of our parent organization, CREW, formerly known as Campus Crusade for Christ. Some of you may know it from that. The CREW Campus International Ministry to college students has had profound impact on lives for 70 years. And you can find more information about CREW on our crew.org website. I left it up there for you to take a look at. Athletes in Action, on the other hand, is 55 years old. We're the sports ministry part of CREW. And we moved to our World Training Center in Xenia around the year 2000. And you can check out our newly revamped and released website at athletesinaction.org. We have really a compelling vision statement that drives us each day. Quote, to see a day when there will be a Christ follower on every team, in every sport, in every nation, close quote. And we picture a day where there's a genuine believer in Christ who's praying for their teammates and witnessing to them and their life and words, from pee-wee sports all the way up to pro and everything in between, and in every sport and every nation. You know, it gets me fired up when I think about that on a daily basis. Our mission statement is taken from Crew's mission statement and adapted for us in particular with sports. It's, quote, to use sport as a platform for building spiritual movements everywhere so that everyone knows someone who is a follower of Jesus Christ. And in that pursuit, we try to build what we call the total athlete. Physically, yes. Mentally, yes. But also spiritually. And we're reminded of what the Apostle Paul wrote to the church at Thessaloniki in Greece in 1 Thessalonians 5:23. He said, may your entire spirit, soul, and body be kept blameless until the day of Christ Jesus. And we really try to follow that challenge that Paul gave in God's word. Our three primary values are that of growth, faith, and fruitfulness. And we want to try to help all of our staff and those we minister to grow in their relationship with God through Christ, to demonstrate their faith and to be fruitful in their kingdom work. And we do this through a variety of ways. We have 717 staff that are serving in 60 countries on 210 college campuses, and as 58 NFL and MLS, Major League Soccer chaplains. Now, we do it through digital resources, connections through that, through special events, and on our AIA campus in Xenia. As with all of you, certainly this past year has been a challenge, and it has been for Athletes in Action, and particularly with the athletes that we minister to who have lost out on their seasons, and many of them lost out on their dreams. But through it all, the Lord's given us a wonderful open door to come alongside and minister, encourage, and help strengthen them spiritually, yes, but also emotionally, mentally, and relationally as they've been dealing with these issues. My wife Betty on the screen and I, we have two friends in ministry who over the past 4 months have had sons in their 20s, both tragically take their own lives. And I'm sure you have stories as well. It's been difficult, but the Lord's grace has been there, and we've tried to minister during this difficult time. We've had the opportunity to also address key issues, the social justice issue, try to do it from a biblical perspective, to offer positive ways that we can be a part of the solution. For example, we hosted for the first time this past weekend a digital Super Bowl breakfast. After 34 years of having it as a live event, we couldn't have it, but the NFL sponsors it. So we had a 1-hour special that was provided through Facebook and YouTube and had a worldwide reach. We started out with military veterans Rocky Bleier, formerly of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Chad Henning, formerly of the Dallas Cowboys, that between them, they have 7 Super Bowl rings. But they shared their heart for serving our country in the military and their joy of their playing experience. Demarius Harris of the New Orleans Saints was the Bart Starr Award winner and shared a strong testimony of his faith and of his little daughter's, one of 4 daughters, but his littlest daughter's cancer and her recovery. Coach Tony Dungy, NFL tight end Benjamin Watson, Indianapolis coach Frank Reich, and CBS commentator James Brown discussed their experiences and perspectives on social justice and how they were trying to make a difference in our culture. I mentioned I serve as chief of staff for our division, mentoring young staff, directly supervising multiple staff, and working on special projects to advance our mission. For my first 6 years with Athletes in Action, I was the director of the Sports Complex and Retreat Center, and which If you've been on there, you know a little bit about it, but it includes a all-turf baseball field, 2 all-turf softball fields, 2 for soccer, and a football field that we also use for soccer, an 8-lane track, and a high and low ropes challenge course. We host our college scouts baseball team that plays in the Midwest League here in the summertime, and people are welcome to come out and watch on a nice summer evening and see some college players play baseball. We have youth baseball and soccer and football camps and programs. To go along with that, we have 5 dorms that can house close to 300 for teams that come to train or for organizations that are hosting tournaments. And we were even able to serve our community over the last few years by providing housing for Wilberforce University and Central State University students when they were having some housing shortages. We have a banquet center that can seat up to 900 for special events and team training tables. And some of you may have been there for our Night of Champions or for some other events over the years. And underneath that banquet center, we have just completed and received occupancy from the county for our basement renovation. It is now a sports performance center with artificial turf for speed and agility training, an extensive weight room for high-end strength training. We're really excited about this opportunity, and we've had multiple teams, individuals contacting us and starting to get trained by a group of trainers that are top in their strength and conditioning profession. One of them is Jeff Friday, who's been the head strength and conditioning coach for a Super Bowl winning team, has 21 years of experience in the NFL, has coached 12 Hall of Fame members, including players such as Randy Moss, Ray Lewis, Deion Sanders, Ed Reed, Shannon Sharp, and John Randall. And along with him, we have an AIA staffer, Sky Simmons, who has coached 20 NFL and 10 Canadian Football League players. We're truly building a high quality staff to grow our ministry efforts in the ever expanding strength and conditioning performance area. And as Mark mentioned during the intro, we are also finishing up our fundraising efforts for the Wooden Family Fieldhouse, named for the late coach John Wooden, voted the greatest coach in the history of American sports. Before he passed at the age of 99 a few years ago, he gave Athletes in Action permission to use his name. Obviously, the past year has been difficult with finishing up our fundraising, but we've got several real good options in front of us now, and we're hoping to complete that. It'll be an indoor facility out at the current sports complex. It'll have 4 basketball courts, an indoor turf area, a sports performance training area, which we're literally going to take from this renovated basement. We built it so we could pick it up, take it, and put it into the new wooden field house. And we'll have a challenge course area as well. Also included will be a John Wooden legacy area where people can come and better learn about or remember the great impact that Coach Wooden had on so many players, coaches, and fans. So again, thank you. I hope this has been of interest to you, especially if you weren't familiar with Athletes in Action, or maybe shed some new light to those of you that have been a little bit familiar with the ministry. We welcome you to be involved with us and kind of look at 3 ways. The first is, we'd appreciate if you would pray for us. Oswald Chambers wrote, he said, "We don't pray for the greater work. Prayer is the greater work." So we would ask that you would pray for us. Someone said, prayer is the slender nerve that moves the muscles of omnipotence. And would love to have you pray for our staff, pray for our ministry opportunities, for our special events, for lives to be impacted, for our funding efforts. Second of all, would be to participate. Join us and participate in events like the Super Bowl breakfast or the Final Four breakfast. Some of these are going digital now, but others will be live. If you have a son or daughter, grandson or granddaughter, in the area looking for participation in a sports program or in a strength and conditioning training program for their sport, we'd love to have you participate with us and receive the benefits that we can offer. And thirdly, to provide, and in a sense, to provide, maybe you have some discretionary funds and would love to invest in the lives of young people. We would welcome you and any generous support along those ways. So this is my contact information. If I can be of any service to you at any time, provide you any information, I would be more than happy to do so. Again, thank you for our time today, and would, if time permits, open it up for any Q&A that you might have about the ministry, about some of the people we work with, some of the impact that it's had.
Thank you so much, Dean. I just have a quick question. How many campuses like that do you have across the country?
This is our only one. This is really our world training facility. The 210 staff we have are actually just ministering on current college or university campuses. This is our world training center. Now, we wouldn't have necessarily picked Xenia because of, it's not around the most populous of areas, but the legacy it has because of its impact on those 13,000 orphans. I think the Lord really led us here to be here and to bring people in to train, send back to their countries, to send us around the world and train here. It's been great. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, thank you. And just a follow up, do you have youth programs and then just kind of steps up from there? And is it every sport or?
The primary target for over the years has been the college athlete, but now growing this campus with the fields that we have, with the indoor facility, we are branching off into youth programs. We're advertising right now for a youth flag football program, and you can go to our Facebook page and look at that. We've got an indoor 3-on-3 soccer tournament going on with some adults, and we're going to be developing a little 3v3 soccer league to host in that sports performance area. We run a very extensive youth baseball program, our youth scouts program in the summer, and they're in the batting cages now. That we have a little area for some batting cages now that they're using. And with the artificial turf, Mike, we're able, once the snow melts, if it gets up to 30, 35, we got people out there in January, February, and the artificial turf gives us a chance to do that. We even get calls from UD and Wright State and Cedarville to come over and practice in the late winter because the artificial turf allows us to do that. But yeah, please check out our Facebook page, and we've got some really good stuff happening for youth.
Wow, thank you. Do you have any other questions?
Hey, Dean, what would be some of the greatest needs that we could pray about for AIA?
I think one, Mark, is, a big part of our ministry over 55 years has been to go internationally. And one year we sent over 35 teams around the world to take sport. Internationals love Americans coming for the sport expertise we bring and skill, but it gives us an open door to share about Christ. And obviously last year, all of our tours were canceled because of the pandemic, and we're not really sure, Mark, where we stand this year. And we're making progress here with vaccinations in our country, but others around the world are slower, and yet there's a great need for us to be out there. So I think that's one. I think second, for our virtual reach, using live stream, using Zoom. We've got our wrestling program weekly. They're having Bible studies on Zoom with wrestlers in Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Russia, big wrestling areas. And I think thirdly, just off the top of my head, would be for fruit to be born from that Super Bowl. We had actually some ministries that minister all throughout Asia that picked up on it. And we think the scope could have been in the multi-millions of people that had access to watch that hour-long Super Bowl breakfast and countless lives may have been changed because of it. So thank you for asking. Those 3 ways would certainly be wonderful for us.
I do have a follow-up too. So, we talk about the pandemic and we moan and groan about wearing masks and social distancing, but really the pandemic has really given ministries or organizations like yourself, if you're willing to explore new ways, greater opportunities and greater platforms. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I don't think our ministry will ever be the same. I think digital is here to stay. It's going to be a vital part of what we're doing. We're actually, through a partnership with eCoach, who has videotaped lessons from NBA coaches all throughout, Steve Kerr and, I mean, just going down the list, all of them, Doc Rivers and people like that, doing lessons, and we're able to send that and have ongoing with athletes in India. And most of them are Hindu, maybe some Muslim and some Buddhist, but they're watching an Athletes in Action program because they're learning basketball and it's building relationships. And we may eventually be able to get them over to have a residential academy in our facility sometime. So yeah, it's, as difficult as it's been, as hard as it's been on people, I think it has opened doors, and particularly for ministry. You've experienced that at Cedarville, the scope of outreach that you've been able to have to students around the world that maybe you've never had before because of this.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
I wanted to make a comment about the campus. When I first started as an assistant Greene County prosecutor, I was assigned to the juvenile court division, and we handled prosecutions of some of the kids who were still on that campus. But it was decrepit. It was a money pit for the state of Ohio, but it was politically in a situation where they couldn't shut it down. And it was just this huge, beautiful piece of land with a great history. And unfortunately, was not living up to that. And so for whatever other impact you have on the community, it is an awesome thing to see that property used in a great way, because it could have gone a different direction. So I think the community is much better off by having such a positive use in that area.
Thanks, David. When we were doing the pro forma with a consulting firm to see if we should build an indoor facility, and they said, yes, you've got the demographics 15 minutes away, 30 minutes away, even 45 minutes outskirts of Columbus, certainly Dayton, outskirts of Cincinnati to be able to draw from. And they projected that we could have upwards of 300,000 people visiting our campus over a given year because of the indoor facility, and the economic impact for our city, our county, our state could be significant. So thank you for all you've done and your role in it. Thank you.
Dean, are you a part of any Rotary organization?
No, I enjoy coming and visiting, and I appreciate it. I really do what you've done. And my days in Wisconsin and days in Florida, I've known people that are Rotarians and really support it and believe what you guys are doing, and seeing the impact that you have globally, but the fact that you take it and you do it locally and you're seeing benefit in the lives of young people, I really appreciate it. So I'm a big supporter.
Well, we'll have your applications in the mail for you and Betty.
And they can be my guests to fulfill their obligations before they become members, and I would be glad to nominate them.
We can't wait to meet live, because I know you used to always have good lunches, and that was always a key part.
Hey, Dean, I have a follow-up question and a statement. So I want to talk about the Wooden Family Fieldhouse and get an update on when you see groundbreaking, that type of thing. But then as a statement, before you get to that, Chad Henne did play at Michigan. Just wanted to know that. You know that.
I don't know if you caught it. He really gave a great testimony on it, Mark. It was very good. And he's 6'6", and he probably played at 250 maybe, linebacker. but he went into the military as a pilot. And when he was telling the story, they were trying to figure out how he was going to get out of the ejection seat. And they were concerned that the ejection seat wouldn't shoot him out in case of an emergency. So they said, Chad, what you've got to do is you've got to do a rollover and you've got to fly upside down so that if you eject, the gravity will help force you out. I just thought that was hysterical. That was good.
That's amazing.
But
How many times did he beat Ohio State, Mark? I think he played.
He's getting to the Wooden family field house.
The Wooden Field House, we have a commitment from our board, and there's a big push to break ground this year. It'll be about a 14-month build out. As I said, we've got two very significant, an organization and a company, a foundation that are considering major gifts that would put us over the top, and then get our permits, obviously, but break ground, be about a 14-month build out. And it would be ideal if we could actually open the doors in the fall of 22, breaking ground here in 21, that would be ideal and really maximize the momentum that we have within the ministry.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Do we have any other questions for Dean?
I had a quick question. When I think of athletes in action, I think about when I was growing up, and I always remember kind of college basketball season, and the first game of the season for a lot of teams was a game against athletes in action. And it was like a preseason game or kind of a warm-up game, and I always thought, man, how cool that is. And so they would kind of travel around the country and play all these really good college basketball teams. And I just wondered, is that still happening? I don't see it as much. Or did something happen with the NCAA where they don't do those preseason warm-up games anymore? Or could you?
Yeah, you're right. That was my first exposure to athletes in action too. I think I saw them play Marquette, but they used to play all the big schools, Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio State before, Michigan, and they would tour and they would get recently college graduates, some really outstanding players. And at one time they said athletes in action would have been ranked in the top 10 in college. They were that good. Bobby Knight actually said they always wanted to get athletes in action on their schedule. We were happy that he did, just to have a ministry to him. But Knight said they always played hard. They matched up and they made us better by playing against them. Unfortunately, you hit it on the head. A few years ago, the NCAA made some changes. We had traveling teams going for a long, long time. The NCAA made changes partly as a reaction to a lot of these AAU travel teams and abuses that were taking place. And they went in and kind of shut that down. So for a number of years, we went around doing the tour with Division III schools, and we ended that a couple of years ago. But we did it with wrestling, we did it with basketball, and for 25, 30, 40 years, we really had a significant impact. And that's, when people think of athletes in action, that's their first memory for many of them.
Do we have any?
Yes, I got a question. I've always appreciated the Hall of Faith that you have there. Who are your most recent inductees?
Well, a couple of years ago, we had Tracy Hansen, who plays on the LPGA Pro. She now does podcasts with Sports Spectrum, part of Radio Bible Class. So she's very active that way. She has her own ministry. She went with us a couple of years ago to Kenya. We took a golf team to Kenya, and you're thinking, why would you go to Kenya? And we actually went to Nigeria before it. But think about it, the Brits, when they went around the world colonizing, they took golf. They love golf. And so they brought golf to Nigeria and Kenya and South Africa and all those places. And so golf is very popular in there. So we had some nice ministry. And also the Clark Hunt You may have seen him. Obviously, he's the owner of the Kansas City Chiefs. Last year, he got to hoist the Lombardi Trophy, and that was part of the hour-long special as well. Last year, to win the Lamar Hunt Trophy, the trophy named after his dad when they won the AFC Championship a year ago, beating the Patriots, and then this year, winning it again and then making it to the Super Bowl and hoisted it. So those were the last couple that we've had. Now, we haven't done the Night of Champions the last couple of years, so we haven't had any inductees, but we hope to get back doing that. Thank you, Brian, for that question. Good one.
I have a question.
Yes, sir. Hi, Dennis.
I'm wondering, have you had any interest in approaching hockey?
Yeah, we actually have a staff guy named Mark Rumchek, and he's in Michigan. He's near the University of Michigan. He actually ministers there, and he's developing our hockey ministry. Obviously, we don't have a rink, but he has built relationships with a lot of top junior players, and certainly some of the schools here in the upper Midwest are top collegiate hockey programs, and he's developing that. Are you a hockey fan yourself? Yeah.
All right, thank you, Dean, so much for a special program, and thanks to your wife, Betty, for joining us as well. We have a tradition in our club that we dedicate a book to the Beaver Creek Library, so I will turn it over to Beth to do that for us.
Dean, in honor of you being with us today on Abraham Lincoln's birthday, we are donating a book to the Beaver Creek Children's Department called Honey, the Dog Who Saved Abe Lincoln. And it's based on a true story of when Abe was a boy and his foot got caught under a boulder in the cavern down in Kentucky. So,
great story. We need to get that. We have a 3-year-old grandson. We'll make sure we pick that up.
That'll be on my book list. Thanks.
Thanks, Beth.
Thank you.
All right, so next week we're going to have another special program as we'll have Ohio Supreme Court Justice Pat DeWine with us discussing how the Supreme Court works. Always privileged to have multiple Supreme Court justices join us throughout the year. Justice DeWine will be introduced by Brian Lampton. Please keep an eye out for upcoming programs at beavercreekrotary.com and Facebook. Anything else for the good of the club?
Yes, Mr. President, I forgot on the sergeant's report and the sports section. I know the club is always very, very interested. Butler University defeated St. John's Wednesday by 3 points, and they are playing Georgetown tomorrow.
Very good. Sorry, I couldn't get to the mute button fast enough. All right. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it. Everyone have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.